Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around I'm playing as the High Elves against the Skaven led by Cowboy on the map, the Bleak Dale. And while this is a fairly generic, I think, High Elf comp, the Skaven comp here was pretty crazy, so I definitely wanted to show this game and just hope maybe give you guys some ideas or kind of show off what some people are running, and I think it was very cool. So one of the things I didn't want to run in this comp, I didn't want to do too fear/terror heavy comp. Skaven are very susceptible to that, and I do think Skaven are kind of the weakest faction right now. I wanted to try do a bit of a fair shake build where I wasn't gonna try to do some sort of terror cheese essentially. So instead, I decided to run a fairly standard comp in most ways, but without without bringing a dragon or a phoenix or anything like that, which the Skaven do normally have a lot of issues with. So I did bring Tyrion on a horse, of course. The Skaven, because they don't have any large mounts really, besides the ogre, and the well, they do have large mounts, but their large mounts don't really do that well in close quarters. I figured Tyrion on a horse would be just fine, and it would give me great amounts of mobility. Tyrion has some of the best melee attack and defense stats in the game. He has incredibly high armor at 125, very solid weapon strength, though no AP, and very respectable charge bonus. He's just a very good lord combat-wise in general. On top of that, I did slap on the Heart of Averlorn, which is a self-heal that casts when he's below 10% HP. It's a very powerful ability, and I do believe he heals him for about 1,000, maybe like 2,000 HP. Is a pretty significant heal. Sunfang, which is just a pretty powerful breath spell, which can definitely annihilate squishy units. Feint Interpost, which is a very powerful self buff that lasts for 31 seconds, and then Stand Your Ground, of course, which is just kind of the generic AoE buff. Alongside him, I did bring a Mage of Life, coming in with Regrowth, Regrowth, Dwellers Below, and Earthblood. I also brought in Book of Hoeth and Starward Staff. There is no more Arcane Conduit, as far as I am aware, at least not for the Elven spellcasters. So this is the replacement. You have to bring two separate abilities, which augment your power recharge rate and power levels. And this is basically just there to support my front line and to try to hope maybe wipe out some enemy blobs. I also have a front line composed of 3 units of Phoenix Guard, who should trade incredibly well with anything the Skaven bring. They might not be the best against, say, Death Runners, and 2 units of Spearmen. Backing them up are 2 units of Lothern Sea Guard, who have very respectable stats, both in range and in melee. They will outrange anything the Skaven can bring to the field, except for artillery. Then out on the flanks, I do have a unit of Dragon Princes on one end, and a unit of Silver Helms on the other, just there to give me some rear charges, help shut down enemy large, and that sort of stuff. Now, my opponent brought an incredibly weird build, and I actually thought it was pretty cool. He brought in a Screaming Bell, or a Gracier of Ruin on a Screaming Bell, with, I do believe, most, if not all, of his spells. It does look like most of them are here. Oh, maybe not. Maybe just Warp Lightning, Unholy Clamor. Oh, actually, that's just a mount ability. So actually, not that much. I didn't even realize that. It just looks like just Warp Lightning, and I do believe Crack's Call are the only ones he brought. Warpstorm Scroll is, of course, a very solid counter to air units. Which High Elves can, of course, bring, so definitely smart thinking, I think, there on my opponent's part. He did bring Arcane Conduit, which will help him cast a lot of spells, and then he does have 2 Plague Priests on Plague Furnaces, and these will cause AoE damage, much like the Mortis Engine. They have armor-piercing anti-infantry, and they have pretty high armor, so they can definitely be a bit of a nuisance to most of my squish units. He also brought a Doom Wheel here to cause terror, and a significant battery of artillery with 2 units of Plague Claws to deal with any heavy infantry I might bring. Now, for his front line, my opponent very cheap and very wide. You can see in the numbers screen, he outnumbers me about 3 to 1, with 1,800 to 630. 6 units of Clarinet Spears with shields, or make up his front line over here. These guys are very high melee defense, a bonus against large, and there's a lot of them, and they can definitely bog me down for significant amounts of battalion and cover everything. On the other flank, he does have some somewhat veteraned up Skaven Slaves and Skaven Slave Spears. I do believe most of these are just Skaven Slaves, but there's a handful of Skaven Slave Spears here too. They're slightly veteraned up. They do have respectable, well, given how cheap they are, they're somewhat respectable stats. They're not good against anything vaguely decent, but definitely my opponent is hoping to, I think, envelop me and kind of crush me with these main sort of core units here and cause terror with the Doom Wheel, supported by all these sorts of morale debuffs coming out from Plague Priests and the Plague Claws. Now, I do push Tyrion straight forward here. He does take a volley from the catapults, which is perfect for me. I'm definitely happy about that, and push straight in on the Plague Claws. Now, one of the problems with the Screaming Bell and the Plague Furnace is that they have very poor melee stats, so they will have a very huge problem trying to hit Tyrion. Fortunately, here you can see my Phoenix Guard are getting torn up. And I do charge the Silver Helms in, and they get met by a charge from all of these Plague Priests, Plague Furnace, and all those units, and immediately start getting torn apart very, very quickly. You can see these Silver Helms do not stand a chance, and they just fall apart. Now, the Dragon Princes do a little better than the charge. They hit this Grazier of Ruin and are just trying to pick them apart. These guys have much better stats. They have Martial Mastery, they have Martial Mastery, they have a huge resistance against fire, though that's fairly irrelevant in this situation. Some decent physical resistance, decent armor, all that sort of stuff. So these guys are very, very powerful. Things at the full speed here. You can see this Doom Wheel has sort of just bypassed me and gone after my Spearmen. My cavalry is not around to shut it down. The Silver Helms are already routing. Phoenix Guard are positioning over here just to counter all of this enemy infantry, and the Lothern Sea Guard is deploying to start sniping away. 2 units of Phoenix Guard, or a unit of Phoenix Guard and Spearmen over here, soon to be backed by another. Well, these Phoenix Guard are probably going to be engaging. I do believe I put them in against the Plague Furnace, but these guys should definitely win out against the Clan Rats with shields. In the meantime, Tyrion did do some damage to the Plague Claw catapults, but I'm now forced to kind of pull him away and go after this Plague Priest, just trying to put him down. And you can see Tyrion's definitely doing a very, very good job against him. Though he is already becoming tired, simply from how much fighting he's already done against those catapults. Now my opponent does pop a cracked skull over here, and it does some pretty significant damage to the Phoenix Guard. You can see they're taking quite a bit of a beating, but thanks to the fear the Phoenix Guard causes, their very high, respectable stats, they've actually kind of managed to chew through all these Clan Rat spears. Meantime, over here, another cracked skull does, or one of the enemy spell does go down here, damages the Dragon Princess a little bit, damages these Spearmen and causes them to terror out. Here, a Mage of Life is popping all of his spells, just trying to stay in the fight. The Phoenix Guard over here taking on 4 units of slaves, and very much kicking their rear. These guys with their incredibly high stats will simply hold out for an eternity. And you can see even here the Lothern Sea Guard is actually kicking some serious Skaven rear against 3 units of Skaven slaves, which is pretty impressive. Unfortunately, the Doom Wheel is coming in, and that could definitely tip the balance here by disrupting and kind of messing up the back line. Now, in the meantime, Phoenix Guard is doing a pretty respectable job against these Clan Rat Spears. You can see this unit of Clan Rat Spears with shields is finally starting to fall apart. Tyrion is in the midst of the enemy, just trying to deal with those enemy large models. They're definitely doing a decent amount of work against them, though they do have pretty high armor, which means that without armor piercing, he's not the best against them. Over here, I do juggle the Dragon Princess over to try to shut the Gracie of Ruin, just trying to kind of put him down. Another Lightning Strike does go down against the Silver Helms and Spears that are coming in here, but so these guys should definitely rout, thanks to the fear that the Phoenix Guard are causing and the backing of all these charges. In the meantime, though, Tyrion is definitely doing some major work here, helping beat up on these priests, and at this point, most of my opponents here, Goon Squad, is kind of falling apart. Fortunately, you can see here the Lothern Sea Guard has been charged into, and this unit of Lothern Sea Guard has broken. Because my opponent has so many cheap units on the field, he's able to pursue them with the Skaven slaves, and I can't really prevent that. Over here you can see one of those casts of Tyrion's ability, the I forget what it's exactly called, the Sunfang, and it does take, as you saw, some pretty significant chunk out of all these guys' HP. Meantime, this right flank has kind of fallen apart, and I'm now able to juggle my troops over to the center and just try to patch things up. The Lord of Life Wizard is doing an okay job here, just trying to tie them down and help. You see the Silver Realms do charge in, and the Phoenix Guard is actually still pretty healthy, and that is good because it means they still have their Martial Mastery up, and they will be able to just bog these guys down and tear through them. Really, they do quite a bit of hurt, definitely, with their armor piercing and all that sort of stuff. You can see the Doom Wheel is definitely struggling a bit when surrounded. It definitely is going down pretty quickly to all of these Phoenix Guard. Fortunately, they do get hit by a lightning strike here, and I do believe that they actually stay just over the brink there. The Lord of Life Wizard is also going in, trying to deal with the Gracie of Ruin, though the Lord of Life Wizard doesn't have the best melee stats, so he's not really doesn't have that much of a chance of dealing with it. Phoenix Guard, in the meantime, has lost Martial Mastery. There's a smosh pit going on over here, kind of, and the Phoenix Priest, Phoenix Guard is being messed up by the Plague Priest, who is causing AoE damage to him over time. So all these units are kind of slowly but surely dying. Over here, the Phoenix Guard has gotten into the back line, going after these Plague Claw catapults and just shutting them down, or trying to shut them down for good. And in the meantime, Tyrion is kind of juggling around. I definitely hesitated here for a little too long, and because of that, my opponent did get a little more work done with the Plague Priest than I would have liked. In the meantime, though, these Phoenix Guard are definitely practically dead, as are these spears, and the Lothern Sea Guard is at this point really the only thing holding out. And you can see that despite the fact that things are definitely tipping in my favor, and this is largely, I think, due to the Phoenix Guard as well as the Silver Helms and Dragon Princes, who are still around and kicking. So despite those things all going in my favor, it is rather impressive to see just how well this comp performed for my opponent. Obviously, in spite of the fact that I didn't really bring any terror bombs, but still, I think it's definitely been performing somewhat well. Now, as you can see here, my opponent is down to his Lord. He's lost his Doom Wheel, I do believe. Either lost it or it's completely routed off. That is actually going to be game. I do believe it was destroyed. There we go. It's actually lying in the ruins over there. So definitely a very close game. Victory. Let's kind of see the after battle stats now. You gotta keep in mind that the and actually when you look at it, of course, Tyrion got 266 kills in no small part due to Sunfang, which does immense amounts of work to squish units like this. The cavalry are okay. Well, you can see that the kill count is not that high for any of these units. They're not really meant to score. They're not really meant to do that much damage to masses of infantry, and it's definitely not an ideal fight for them, especially when those infantry are backed by these sorts of huge, monstrous troops like the Plague Beasts on the Plague Furnaces and the Screaming Bell and the Doom Wheels. And you can actually see them on the scan slates. I do believe these were the guys who pursued the Lothar and Seaguard. Did manage to get a decent amount of kills and damage in. I definitely think it was an interesting compromise for my opponent. I don't think it would be good against a more conventional High Elf build, simply because the High Elf could bring a very terror-heavy army and divide and conquer your army very, very quickly. Even one lord on a dragon would have been a huge, huge problem for my opponent in this sort of situation, because my opponent had nothing really to shut down a single large lord of that sort, just because the Skaven Clan Rat Spears don't have very good armor piercing at all. Even when they're veteraned up, they're not particularly great against such heavily armored large, and none of these other units really have much of a chance against it either. But yeah, it was definitely a fun game. I definitely thought it was a very cool comp. You can actually see that I took far more losses than my opponent did. It simply came down to the fact that my opponent's army broke. I'm not actually sure if had my opponent's army stuck around, because there's so many troops on the field, if I would have actually been able to win. Because so many of my units were whittled down so badly. So definitely a very morale route heavy, liable army, but still very cool. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, criticism, any questions about Quick Match or Warhammer 2, anything like that, or recommendations, be sure to post for units you'd like to see demonstrated or comps you'd like to see. Be sure to post those down in the comments. I will respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.